We're now delighted to be joined over the telephone by His Excellency Ambassador Mohamed Oraby, the former Assistant to Foreign Minister, to shed more light on the distinguished Egyptian-German relations. It's a very good afternoon to you, Mr. Ambassador.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for joining us, Your Excellency. Now, firstly, as the German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock paid an official visit to Egypt, she met with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi as well as the Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry and another large number of officials. She had very important talks. Could you shed more light on the Egyptian-German relations as well as their historical ties over the last decades, really?
Yes, let me start by mentioning that Egypt and Germany enjoying a very good relationship for many years ago.
Yes.
And Germany is one of the important partners for our development. And they always, help Egypt to achieve its goal for progress and having more, or let us say, advanced standard of living. And the German companies, they are working hard here in Egypt.
Yes.
In different fields, especially in the energy and some other things. We have also a very good cultural relationship between the two countries.
Mm-hmm.
Germany is looking to Egypt as a major player in the region, and they consider us as playing a pivotal role in all these chronic problems which is now prevailing in the region.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why maybe you can discover that one of the topics was on the agenda was the Libyan issue and some other issues also in the region.
Mm-hmm.
Egypt and Germany worked hard for the Berlin conference, the Berlin 1 and Berlin 2, in order to achieve a peaceful solution for the situation in Libya.
Yes.
And I think the whole world now is trying to look to this, roadmap in order to achieve peaceful situation in the Libyan territory. So we have a lot of cooperation, especially in the field of culture and also the military equipment. So I think Egypt is
yes.
one of the major, let us say, importer for the some German weapons. And they always, consider Egypt as one of the forefront of combating terrorism in the region, and that's why they look to us as an important country, stable country, and the country could play an important role to solve the situation, especially in the Palestinian issue, the Libyan issue, and some other, chronic crisis which is now in our region.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Ambassador, also discussions related to the 27th Conference of the Parties to the UN Convention on Climate Change, or COP27, which is to be hosted later on this year in Egypt, in the Red Sea Resort city of Sharm el-Sheikh. Also, some talks were and ideas were exchanged. How do you see the importance of Egypt hosting this upcoming conference and the situation with regards to climate change and Egypt taking a leading role in the fight against, climate change?
The climate change now is on the top of the international agenda.
Yes.
And Egypt is paying a lot of attention to this, important issue. And we were so active in the last conference in England, and that's why we host the next summit in Sharm el-Sheikh. And I think the foreign minister is playing an important role to pave the way for a successful conference in Sharm el-Sheikh. He was in Bonn yesterday to visit the climate change authorities in Bonn, which is under the umbrella of the UN. And of course, the meeting with the foreign minister, the lady foreign minister of Germany here in Cairo, it was one of the topics which was discussed. And you know that the lady foreign minister of Germany, she was the chairman of the Green Party, and the Green Party, as you know, it is one of the main concerns of this party is the climate change and how to preserve the environment all over the world.
Yes,
so
indeed.
She was extremely engaged in this issue, and I think Germany will be helpful, I would say, country to help Egypt in order to achieve some tangible results through this conference in Sharm el-Sheikh this year.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Ambassador, the German Foreign Minister also hailed Egypt's efforts in several regards, especially consolidating the values related to religious tolerance, freedom of worship, acceptance of others, saying Egypt has really become a role model in this regard, regionally as well as internationally. What is the importance, in your opinion, of such a statement and of clarifying Egypt's efforts in such a field to the international community?
Yeah, of course, the dialogue and accepting, the others and trying to mitigate the articulation of hatred, I would say, speeches. I think all these new principles, it is very important in order to have a peaceful environment all over the world. And I think Egypt, as you just mentioned, is a role model on this issue. Also in Germany, I can tell you that the German society is we can say that they have a lot of tolerance for the others and for the foreigners now. And so I think when Egypt is paying more attention to this, good principles, I think we will gain the appreciation and the respect of all the countries, especially in the West. And I think this will be one of the, let us say, cornerstone of peace in the region and peace also all over the world.
Yes, Your Excellency. And during a joint press conference in Cairo, Foreign Minister Sema Shukri with his German counterpart Annalena Baerbock stressed the depth of relations between Cairo and Berlin and some of the issues they discussed. As you mentioned, the situation in Libya was discussed, and also the Palestinian issue was discussed, and we saw the German Foreign Minister praising Egypt's efforts on trying to reach a ceasefire and an agreement between Palestinians and Israelis. How do you see Germany side with regards to the Palestinian cause, and what new solutions do you think Germany has for such regional issues?
Yeah, I think the new government in Germany, I think it matches, the same views from Egypt that we should have lasting solution for the Palestinian issues. And the two-state solution, I think this is the acceptable principle from different countries, even the American administration now.
Yes.
So I think there is a sort of mutual interest between the two countries, Egypt and Germany, to have a lasting solution to this issue. But I don't know if there is a sort of process now, or let us say physical process now, which could allow us to engage in a serious discussion in order to achieve this goal, the two-state solution. Maybe with Egypt and Germany, or Egypt and the European Union and the United States, I think we can have a sort of mechanism to put the two sides in a serious discussion. But I don't think that the Israeli government or the recent Israeli government is ready to be cooperative in this regard.
Right. Your Excellency, this year Egypt and Germany are celebrating their 70th anniversary of establishing diplomatic ties. Let's talk a bit about the economic part of these ties. How do you see Egyptian-German economic ties, trade relations, and their cooperation in this regard?
Yes, this is one of the cornerstones of our relation with Germany.
Yes.
The economic ties, and don't forget that Egypt could be an important hub for energy in the coming few years. And I think Germany, if you are following this discussion between Russia and Germany now, maybe Germany will look to Egypt as a main source of electricity and natural gas in the future. So Egypt could be also an important, hub for the whole Europe, not just for Germany, due to this escalation, which is now in Europe between Russia and Ukraine. And I think this might threaten the flow of natural gas for Europe. So I guess Egypt will be ready to play this role in the near future.
Indeed. Right. Can we also talk a bit, Your Excellency, about the importance of the Egyptian-German relations in light of the recent campaign beautiful destinations that was launched by the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism, and it has really been aiming to brand Egypt as a sustaining cultural tourism for countries like Germany. How big is Egypt as a destination for German tourists?
Well, German tourists, they are most welcome, of course, in Egypt. They consider Egypt as one of the best destinations. And I remember a few years ago, Germany was at the top of the list of, countries exporting tourism or tourists to Egypt. And I think due to this COVID-19, I think the situation is not so good like many years ago. But we can say that we have a sort of recovery now for the tourism flow to Egypt. And if you go to Hurghada now, I think you will find a lot of Germans there. And the culture also, tourism is so important for the Germans. So Egypt is one of the best destinations for the tourists coming from Germany. And I see that a lot of maybe efforts from our side to promote, Egypt as a good destination for Europe and for the Germans in particular.
Yes, absolutely. Your Excellency, now today President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi head to Belgium, to Brussels, to take part in the 6th European Union African Union Summit. That will be running on the 17th and 18th of February. The summit where leaders from the EU and the AU, as well as respective member states, are meeting to renew deeper partnership between both blocs based on trust and clear understanding of shared interests. How do you see, the visit by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to take part in this very important summit over the coming 2 days, sir?
It is an important summit, and I think you will agree with me that President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi always talked on behalf of Africa and for the interest of the African people. And I think this summit could maybe devote a lot of resources to help the African countries. And even yesterday in Cairo, President Sisi was so clear when he mentioned that the African countries, they deserve more attention from the West, and they deserve more financial assistance. So I think this will be voiced also during this summit. And as I told you, President Sisi always, talk on behalf of Africa and for the interest of the Africans. And I hope that this summit maybe will bring more commitments from the Europeans in order to help the African nations. And I guess we are in need for this kind of assistance and help in order to match the developed plans in the 2030s.
And we've seen as well, Mr. Ambassador, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi always advocating for African countries' rights. Also with regards to the coronavirus pandemic, we've seen him advocating for equal distribution of medication and vaccinations in order to fight the pandemic effectively and equally, just like other European countries. How important is that constant reminder by the President, and how do you see it as featuring on the agenda of the talks?
Well, Africa, I think, all the African nations, actually, they need sort of help from the others in order to fight this COVID-19. The experience from the past, it was not so, let us say, good, because I remember when we were, trying to mobilize Western help to fight AIDS in Africa. They pledged, I think, $9 billion, but I don't see a result for this kind of commitment from the Western nations. So it is good to talk about the help, but commitments and putting all these commitments on the ground and to help indeed the African nations. It is very important, and we don't need just statements mentioning that they help the African countries, but I think it should be on the ground and to reach all the African countries, especially with this combating this new disease, the COVID-19, which is now crossing the border of all over the world.
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to thank you very, very much, Your Excellency, Ambassador Mohamed Oraby, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and your insight and for joining us on today's edition of Cairo Local Time. Much appreciated, ladies and gentlemen. A short break and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.